Good morning and welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering wisdom for living on this year Wednesday, Friday morning, rise and shine. And this morning here, as we look at wisdom, we're looking at the topic healing nature of observational wisdom. So we're looking at observational wisdom this morning here as we continue in Proverbs chapter 30, and I will try to connect it to the rest of the week, but we're looking at observational wisdom. So God bless you. Thanks for being with me here. And let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, I thank you for the blessings of your word. I thank you for the blessings, dear Lord, of being able to partake meditationally on your word. May you bless us by thy spirit and bless those who are here for Christ's sake. Amen. So I'm looking at this topic here with you, observational wisdom. And I want to show you the benefits and the blessings of observational wisdom. And so I will connect it to a certain degree to what I'm talking about all week. And again, my theme for this week as we close out now is the need for healing. And the main takeaway point is that the current depressed or weak, so the current depressed, weak or sick state is not normal and should not be acceptable. So whatever current state that is you're in, that is if it's depressed or if it's weak or if it's sick, it should not be acceptable. Now, one of the ways I've observed to get out of this that I'm going to talk about here is this idea here of observational wisdom and the benefits of having observational wisdom. And I pin it to this here because I believe this is important. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read through one time and I'm going to review for you for the rest of the time, Proverbs 30, verse 15 through 33. Basically, we're going to close out Proverbs 30 before we go to the massive Proverbs 31, powerful. And so before we get there, we're going to close this out. So this, I think, is going to be a good exercise into what I call observational wisdom. And why would I think observational wisdom is can be very therapeutic for whatever trouble you're going in. So if you're in a situation that is depressing, if you're in a situation that you have weakness, if you have sickness, a lot of the things that stuck people is that they don't come to conclusion by observing. Observational wisdom, just looking around and draw wisdom. So this whole section here is the writer of this. He is observing life and just taking note. He's a scientist in the truest sense, in the sense that he observes something and he has a lesson from it. Even if the lesson is not apparently important, there are times in your life that you think about it and a text will pop in your mind. You'll be like, that's what this person was talking about. You observing something, you come into a conclusion. And so he's going to observe, comes to a conclusion. Observe, come to a conclusion. And we're going to follow him there. But what we're doing is not necessarily, I might say things in here that you might like say, that's not important to me. But what is important, and I want to stress this, is learning to be able to in life to always observe, to not always be a participant in life, but in most of the time to be a spectator and observe things and come to a conclusion, because a lot of the solution for your problems, my problems, is simply in observational wisdom. And I'll explain this like this way. You see a cat, they get sick, and the first thing cat do is get some herbs, eat it, then vomit up whatever. And you look at that, you're like, Lord, I don't get it. What am I supposed to observe there? If you get sick, you need to get whatever inside of you out. You either get it by pushing it down or pushing it up. Vomit it from either end. That's observational wisdom. And in it is therapeutic, because in it is solution for your problems. You got to observe. And so here I'm going to read it one time through, and then we're going to go right ahead and we're going to break this down piece by piece. So remember, this is the skill set that you're learning. Proverbs 30 verse 15 says, the horse leech had 2 daughters, crying, give, give. There are 3 things that are never satisfied, yea, 4 things that say not, it is enough. The grave, the barren womb, the earth that is not filled with water, and the fire that saith not, it is enough. The eye that mocketh at his father and despiseth and despiseth to obey his mother. The raven that of the valley shall pick it out, and the young eagle shall eat it. There are three things which are too wonderful for me, yea, four which I know not: the way of an eagle in the air, the way of a serpent upon a rock, the way of a ship upon the in the midst of the sea, and the way of a man with a maid. Such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth and wipeth her mouth, and saith, I have done no wickedness. For three things the earth is disquieted, and four which it cannot bear: for a servant which when he reigneth, and a fool when he is filled with meat, an odious woman when she is married, and an handmaid that is heir to her mistress. There be four things which are little upon the earth, but they are exceeding wise. The ant are a people not strong, yet they prepare their meat in the summer. The coney are but a feeble folk, yet make they their house in the rocks. The locusts have no king, yet go they forth, all of them by bands. The spider taketh hold with her hand, and is a king, and is in king's palace. There be three things which go well, yea, four are comely in going: a lion which is strongest among beasts, and turneth not away for any; a greyhound as he goeth about; a king against whom there is no rising up. If thou hast done foolishly in lifting up thyself, or if thou hast thought evil, lay thine hand upon thy mouth. Surely the churning of milk bringeth forth butter, and the wringing of the nose bringeth forth blood. So the forcing of wrath bringeth forth strife. So that's Proverbs chapter 30, beautiful there in verse 15. So notice here, he's going through and he is observing, and he makes a conclusion, or he points out whatever he's observing. And when you look at this, you say, well, okay, there's some good things. We're going to review it. But as I review it, I don't want you to lose this observation. I'm observing the person who's observing. That a major facet of life is to be able to stop, look at what's going around you, and think on it. And that's all he's doing. He's thinking on it, and he thinks on it, and he does something that we were taught when we were children, to make associations. And so he makes these associations. He says there's three things, that so forth and so on. And then he said, but in order for him to come, you would have to observe the eagle, or the lion, or the spider, or the king's palace, or all these things. He would have to observe it, and then as he observes it, he says, I make some association. So that means this here is deep thought. It's not just looking, because you remember the eyes focus without our control in it. The eyes just look. Wherever you look, the eyes focus. The brain doesn't say focus. You don't squeeze your eye or control the muscle. It just does its thing. So seeing is not the problem. Everybody sees. You talk to somebody and everybody saw what happened, but different people interpret or perceive the event differently. People don't read into stuff. Here he's doing deep reading, and this to me is part of anybody's therapy, to start learning to observe, learning to listen, learning to think on what you just saw, meditate upon it, go back and review it, go it over and over again. And so what am I supposed to get? Because there's times the Lord put something in front of you and somebody sees it, you see it, and they don't get anything from it, and you got something from it, and you bless. And in life, this is where the Bible want to calm us down, slow us down, start to have us to think, what's happening there? What is I supposed to get from that? Nothing in this world is just put there from a one-dimensional point of view or two-dimensional. Everything that we do has multiple use. That's how God created the earth. You have your hand, and it's made to function, but then in your hand is all the senses, and then you have all the senses, but then you have the nails. The nails are there, and then you're like, man, these nails are, this cannot be accident. This is here, this is put there because it's so perfect for our function. Everything you need to do, you need to pick and scratch yourself, you need to pick and scratch stuff, you need to pop stuff open, you need to, do certain fine motor skills. You need that fingernail. That fingernail is so useful. Many people say, oh no, it's the thumb. No, it's everything on it. The nail, the nerve ending. So, if you're burning yourself, it is all planned out. And you can sit there and just keep meditating upon your hand. And you can gather so much wisdom and so much knowledge. And it's the same thing. It's observational. So whatever you're going through, whatever depressed state, whatever weakness, observe. And you start to find solutions that somebody say, how do you figure this out? Yeah, I just stop and think. How do you get yourself out of the situation? I stop and think. But remember, when we're in trouble, what often happens, we don't stop and we don't think. We just rush ahead. And we start making mistakes because we panic. There's times when we need to fight. There's times when we need to be in flight. But this cannot be our experience in life. Most of the time, you have to pull back, observe, learn something, because there's something to learn. Observe, listen to somebody. What are they saying? No, not what they said, but what are they really saying? And you'll be blessed. And so there's something therapeutic about what he's doing. He's a scientist through and through. Before we could proudly say, hey, this person's a scientist. And the scientist says, because he observed. And over the life I've learned, I've observed a lot of things. And if you look at it, you can be a social scientist, a botanist, all the different scientific studies. Because you just observe in life. So listen to this now. Here I'm going to review some of it. I'm going to review all of it with you here. Now, in verse 15 again, Proverbs 30. And notice here, he observed the horse leech, or the leech, had two daughters, crying. They're crying, the two daughters, give, give. So they keep sucking, just keep taking and never stop. There are three things that are never satisfied, yea, four things, say not, it is enough. So they don't say, I've enough. The grave, the barren womb, the earth that is filled with water, that's not filled with water, and fire that saith not, it is enough. Now you read that and you say, well, okay, what's so earth-shattering? I think what's earth-shattering for me, and it's very cute, is that the brain put that together. It's that in itself is what I'm talking about, that association. He's looking at he's dealing with the grave, and he said, man, people don't stop dying. It never ends. And he's okay, and he goes on in his life, and then he's dealing with, say, a female that, oh man, I'm gonna die. I feel like my life is no meaning or whatever until I have a child. And so I've seen situations where it's a guy like that. The guy is like, oh man, if I don't have a child, I'm gonna die. And you look at that, you say, okay, he makes that observation. Okay, this person never gonna be satisfied until this thing happens. Then he goes on and he says, he's looking at life and he sees the parched earth. And he said, man, this earth needs some water. And you think about a place like, say, the Sahara Desert. And you could, I don't know if rainfall there even, but say you could send a tornado, a hurricane, or whatever, and it just dump millions of barrels of water, gallons of water. Never satisfied. And he makes that observation. And then the fire that saith not, it is enough. And he makes that observation. He just keep consuming and he just keep burning. Just keep taking up square miles after square miles. And he makes those observations, and somebody could say, well, the fire says it's not enough. It's enough. Get into all that type of thinking. You just get what he's saying. He's observed, and then he connects the four. And in your life, this is how you start off your education. We all start off our education, not so much by just teaching us A, B, C, but they'll teach us A and B, and then we'll connect and say, oh, C. Many of our education comes naturally by us, our brain connect the rest. It gives us the the next step. And we are trained like that in school. If this happened and that happened, what next going to happen? And a lot of wisdom, or a lot of what we call prophecy, or human predicting human behavior or outcomes, is simply in this methodology, is making those connections, those correlation, or in understanding. If somebody say, hey, this is the pattern, and they show the pattern 1, 2, 3, then they give you a new, scramble it, and they give you a new scenario, and they say 1, 2, and they say, tell me what is 3, and you say, oh, this is 3. Human behavior is no different. It is often false teachers that confuse this idea. Human behavior in the Bible is very scientific. People say, oh, I listen to science. This is scientific what we're doing here. It's just observing human behavior, making correlation. They always say that correlation is not causation, because something is corollary doesn't mean it's cause. But you can't ignore correlation. And so it's almost like wisdom is teaching you correlation. If I observe, the more, like what I covered on Wednesday, the more people eat meat and eat the regular standard American diet, is the more cancer. Okay, so more cancer, more meat. It's just somebody in a lab coat did a research, and they come up with it and say whatever. Well, if I observe it the same way, somebody say, oh yeah, but you're not a certified scientist. Sure, I'm not, but I'm looking at the data. I'm looking at all the different things that are going on, and I'm saying I'm making a correlation. So the correlation was made on Wednesday was obesity is connected with cancer, 13 type of cancers. But you come on here, listen to me, and I say, from my observation, the articles I've read, the people I've observed, there seem to be, in my little circle of life, a higher rate of cancer with certain lifestyle practices. And somebody say, yeah, but your data set is not large enough. True, but my data set can be totally invalidated because it's not large, just by my observation. Because there's a correlation. They say, well, it's not at the scientific level because no peer viewer would approve it. But it's wisdom for me. I make that observation and I say, based upon that, I'm going to do the wise thing. Because wisdom is simply just getting knowledge and understanding and learning to use those things to make a decision. So you use those things to make a decision, and you understand, and so that's why I always say you don't go against nature, because nature is like trying to stop the Niagara Fall. You just work with nature. Somebody said, we get that from my observation. I'm just observing life from the people I've come in contact with for my short span of life, that you don't go against nature. You just work with it. So he simply says, there's these things, they never have enough. And he makes a correlation. And that's where we start here. So it's just observing. So whatever problem you're going through, a lot of it can be solved by observing the life around you. Observe how life does. Like yesterday, I've this, we call it these, the feeders for the birds. And I have one of the feeder, the sweet feeder for the hummingbird. So yesterday is the first I saw the hummingbird came back. It was warm here yesterday in New Jersey. So the hummingbirds came back. And I'm thinking, yeah, this would be a good time to come back. I could do life like the hummingbird, leave in the winter, like the snowbirds, and then come back leave before the winter, then come back this time of the year. So you get the best of both worlds. When it's too hot in Florida, you come back up. But it's just observing life. You're observing, it's like life start. And just the time they came back, it is almost full spring outside my window. It is literally start turning green. And it's like it just so happened that yesterday was the day. And there were sightings because I go online and I observe, where there's a website you can go and see where people spotting them as they come by north. And there was, I think, a few spotting already. But my first sight was yesterday. But I already put out the thing from last week and say, I know they're either here already or they're soon be back. But that's just observational. But I could observe that and get no lesson from that. You could observe it, but because you stop long enough and keep thinking about it or whatever, you say there's a lesson to learn. And you come up with an answer for something. And somebody say, how do you come up with that? Oh, I was just observing hummingbird. And they say, you're crazy. And you'd be like, not really. I'm just stopping to think. And this is what he does here. And this is what I'm telling you is therapeutic. It is therapy in itself. There's a lot of people with their mad mind. They can't calm their crazy thoughts. And what they need to do is probably go get some birds and go try to figure out what they need to learn from the birds. And somebody is thinking, what are you doing? I'm just distracting myself. And what that does, slowly but surely, therapeutically heals the mind. Notice here he says in verse 17, the eye that mocketh at his father and despiseth to obey his mother. It hurts this person. The raven of the valley shall pick it out, and the young eagle shall eat it. Now, here goes, and everything else I'm going to read here is literally why I think so many people are not only dying in ignorance, but they're dying in an obnoxious way because they hate the Bible. Because what it is, the Bible in itself is observational wisdom. When the Bible states something, as crazy as it may sound, crazy, sounds so crazy that you're like, what? If you don't learn to pull back and say, let me not be dismissive and be a fool, but let me patiently think about what is just said. And then, until then, you never really can appreciate the Bible for what it is, because they'll say things that, and as I say over the years, I've read things in the Bible and I say, I know it's truth because the Bible says truth, but I don't know why. And as life goes on, something will happen, or 2 or 3 things will happen, or whatever. And I'll come to a point where I say, oh, that's what the Bible is talking about in that text. But I had to observe life, and the life illumines my mind by the Spirit, I think, to give me an understanding of what the text is saying. And you see a text like this, I just literally look at it and say, yep, I don't like this text. I know what it's saying, and I know that it's truth, and I know why it's truth. It's literally reality. It's, you see a person there, you see this all the time. The person full of themselves, the obnoxious young person, you can't talk to them, whatever. They're going to flame out. They're going to go out in a smoking flame. You just give them time. But if you say that, somebody be like, yeah, what are you talking about? It's just observation. Observed. And I'm sure the writer observed it also. He's looking at life, and he probably run into a young man, he's 14, and the eyes that mock it at his father, like, I ain't listening to you, dad, and despise it to obey his mother because he's more inclined to want to obey the mother because, oh, the mom is like, son, don't join the gang, don't do this, and like, man, I ain't listening to her. And then you see him got shot up or stabbed to death or hacked to death, and he observes it and says, yeah, I remember that boy. I remember when I went over to the house like 10 years ago, that boy so nasty and disrespectful. And then now 10 years later, man, brutally killed. And you'll be like, what? And he observes and say, man, and that's healing. Because when you observe that, you'll be like, yeah, I remember. Because I had friends like that. You go to some of these, you're in church, and you're there and you're trying to teach the word, you're trying to encourage, and there's this young girl, she has attitude and she ain't listening to nobody. And then next you know, oh, she's missing, and then they find her in a culvert or in a ditch, all just cut it up and mangle up. And you say, I remember her. I remember her, rude, in your face, forward, nasty, sexualized in their teens already. And next thing this is how she happened. Or you see on the side of the street selling herself. They'd be like, yeah, I remember her. And somebody say, man, but the Bible says these things. Why would the Bible say that? Because that's life. That's life. You go places where people have dreams, Imagine Hollywood. And what's famous with Los Angeles? Skid Row. Skid Row, where everybody who had dreams go there, and that's where they end up. They end up in the skids. Probably not everybody, but people think they're going to take life by the horn, and all they do, they become a mental mess. They're going to take all the drugs. Oh man, drugs is good. You can't talk to them. I mean, you really can't talk to somebody who's on drugs, because they're going to, and they just wreck their lives, wreck their body, wreck everything. And you say, oh, see, so you observe. And a lot of the solution and problems in life is that we don't stop to receive wisdom from what we observe. And I know this is a term, but it's observational wisdom. That's what I'm coining it as. You look around in life, you're like, yeah, you learn. You see somebody going a certain way, and the friends just say, hey, calm down, man. And they'd be like, oh, no, I ain't coming out. And next thing you know, you have to be visiting the person in prison. And you say, man, why am I visiting a person in prison? You know, you beg the person and talk to the person, and then the results come. And notice here, they mock at their father. The father talking. I've had a situation, you know, I'm sure you've had a situation. You're talking to someone, they're mocking. And next thing you know, oh, they're in prison. I remember they were mocking. They think it was a joke. Now they're going to get joke in prison. Now, verse 18 says, there are three things which are too wonderful for me, yea, for which I know not. The way of the eagle in the air, the way of the serpent upon a rock, the way of the ship in the midst of the sea, the way of a man with a maid. So three, a fourth thing that is just too wonderful. This text always fascinates me, because the eagle, as you fly, when you see the eagle fly, when you even see a modern plane fly, it is remarkable because it just soars. And he says eagle. I've observed, you know, buzzards and stuff like that. They just, I made that sound effect because that's what I imagine it's like. They're just way up in the air, just floating along. And it seems like they have almost eagle's vision because they can see a carrion or carcass way down below and say it's time for the pallbearers and the funeral home people to go down and clean up that mess. And they'll bury that carcass in their stomach. So you look at it and it says, look, the way of the eagle, it just soars. And you've seen an eagle. They're majestic, beautiful creatures. And the way of the serpent on the rock, the way of the serpent on anything is fascinating. It just slithers. It's just, you can't get it. And I know they'll break it down, and still, even after somebody break it down and say, oh, this is how it does it, I'm like, I still don't get it. Somebody say, you don't want to get it. No, I don't. I just want to be amazed. It is amazing. And the ship on the sea, even the boat on the sea, is amazing. Especially when you see these big old, you know, crude ships and these humongous, what do you call it, tour boats, the cruise ships. Did I say that? I saw the crude and the cruise, the cruise ship. Hopefully I'm getting those two right. So, you know, when you see those humongous hotels, the cruise ships on the sea, it is amazing to see that. And imagine in his time, he was seeing things that are way smaller. And now you can have, as I say, hotels, massive hotels, metal hotels, just floating out there. And they can be there for days. Just out there with food and supplies. And I know they can be there for longer, but I'm saying for a cruise, they'll be there out there at sea for days with food and supplies. And you see that you're like, this is amazing. In the midst of the sea. And it says, and the way of a man with a maid. Some renders it the way of a man with a virgin. And he says, it's amazing. It is too wonderful for him to observe. He doesn't explain to you why they're amazing. He just said, this is amazing. You could just sit there and watch a snake slither all day long. Or you could watch a ship on the sea. And you just sit there and be like, it's on the sea. It's amazing. And the same thing with a plane. There's people go to the airport just to see planes take off and land. Because it's amazing. And when you're in a plane, it's amazing. You don't know what to do with it because you know it's up there. And it's just there. And it's the same thing with a man with a virgin. It's amazing. And you don't know what to do with that. And it blows the mind. It's just phenomenal. It says a man with a maid. And yet he gives you that observation. He don't tell you what he's amazed about them. And you don't know why I say it's amazing either. But in verse 20, he hits you now with the observational wisdom. Such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth and wipeth her mouth and saith, I have done no wickedness. It's amazing. It's like watching a snake. You'd be like, what's wrong with her mind? Why did, and she'd be like, ain't nothing wrong. She eat and she just wiped her mouth. Nothing happened. Just clean up herself and keep going. And say, I ain't do nothing wrong. I just did what I have to do. And it is something you observe. And to me, somebody said, well, why would that observation be important? Because you have to understand what you're dealing with. It's just they're going to do what they're going to do. And so you got to protect yourself. You got to be careful of that because the person has no conscience with it. And they just move on as if nothing happened. And you observe. So in this is not sometimes just the lesson. Because for me, the lesson might be important to a certain degree. But the bigger issue is in life, open your eyes, open your ears, and observe. Don't go through life being depressed because the same bad things keep happening to you. Well, you didn't learn. Lesson was not learned. Open your eyes and observe, and you'll start to find that you start learning lessons from life's events, from the things that are happening around you. But if you don't, then you're not going to. You're not going to. As a matter of fact, I'll give you an example. This example as I'm talking about observation. The way of a man with a maid. You know, if I'm dealing with a person that's single, it's fine. Normally, the moment I realize this person is going to get married, I say I'll deal with them on the other hand, because their choice is going to change, because they're going to be so blown out of the water with that maid or that virgin that whatever choices and decisions they made before is going to change. Now, if the person's already gotten over that hump for, say, the first year after marriage, and I'm dealing with them at that point, or they say, oh yeah, let's continue the relationship, whatever, then I'll be like, okay, we're good. But that initial hit, I'm like, look, there's like they're high on drugs. I can't talk to them until they get sober again. Somebody said, well, why you observe? I've observed that over the years, and it's never failed. It's just, that's just the reality. And it just never fails. And I say, I'll talk, we're good. I leave them alone, I give them time. Because what happened, they have to get settled back in, and they have decisions to make what they're going to do going forward. But because the amazing experience with a man with a virgin or a maid, their brain is going to have to be settled in. She's going to have a lot of pull on his decision making because she has some massive control there because he's blown out of the water. And somebody said, that's what you observe. Yeah, that's what I observe, and it's real. And you anybody can challenge me on this. And the only person who could challenge me on this, and I'm not going to try to even argue back, is a maid. She going to say, oh, no, it's not like that. I'm like, okay. But ain't no guy going to disagree with me. But that's what the reality is. And so somebody said, and that's what if we're doing ministry together, the ministry stop until, give them a year or so after they come out of their honeymoon chamber. It's amazing. And so you observe life. And that to me is what you do. And when you live like this, it's healing because you get yourself into less trouble. And you learn to not, as I say, I've learned in life, you don't try to stop Niagara Falls. You don't stop nature. You work with it. You're not trying to stop it. You're just trying to direct the flow and know how to move around it, because when it's coming, like when a tornado is coming, if it's coming for you, you either get down on the ground or be prepared to blow it away. You're not stopping it. You get out of the way, you hide, or you're prepared to be wiped out. So that's where it is. I'm telling you, this is the observation. And as I observe stuff, people will disagree with me. And I'm probably wrong. Observational wisdom is not normally, it's not infallible. I could be wrong. But there's a certain point where I've been through 5, 6, 7, 8 experiences. And I come to the point and I say, you leave people with their maid. Let them get over that shock. And boom, and I learned something. Somebody say, oh no, you're wrong. How can you come to this conclusion? I just like, stop it, eyes. I don't even want to hear from what you're saying. Observe. Unless you can tell me something otherwise to enlighten my darkness, you can't be knocking what I'm saying. I'm just saying this what I've observed, and I've never seen it gone wrong. It's the same thing when you deal with the situation where it says a barren womb that never satisfied. I've dealt with people, you can't do ministry with them if they're in a thing where they say, man, I need to get married because my eggs are getting older. Nothing. If they're because not everybody's in that mode, but if they're in that mode, ain't nothing else matters until that happens. And somebody say, oh, that's a bad observation. I've never seen anything that works against that. So how you going to tell me it's a bad observation? So that's the reality with life. And if you don't observe, you don't understand what's happening. And you always seem confused. And that's where I think a lot of people get themselves into depression. or they get themselves in a weak state, or they get themselves into a sick state, because they're not observing life. They're not observing in the winter, especially live up north. Our bodies need what they call room temperature, that's in the 70s. But in the winter, the temperature can go down into the single digit. It can go down to literal zero. That means 32 degrees below zero for us over here in America. So your bodies are going to be under a lot of pressure, because your body now, although the air is cleaner and crisper, your body under a lot of pressure, because now your body has to always deal with that extreme variable, which is extremely, cold. So you observe in the winter, you just make a wise decision. You say, oh, I observe this is the reality. My body's under more pressure. I need to boost my immune system. I need to drink, make sure I'm always hydrated. I need probably to exercise a little bit more. I need to eat less sweets. But it just so happened that the time that we're supposed to be having cleaner air and stuff like that is the time that people eat more food and sweets, so they can have a flu season in the winter. The culture now creates more problem. Now you have the cold, you have the sweets from Thanksgiving and Christmas, and those things don't go together. And then you have your indoors, so you're not exercising or going for a walk. That's a triple whammy. And so you have something called a flu epidemic. That's more or less created, because it's not necessarily that in the winter you should have more flu, because in the winter things should spoil slower. In the summer, it should spoil faster. You really should have a flu epidemic in the summer, not in the winter. But we end up having it in the winter. So anyhow, it's just observational. So where you get that from? I'm just observing life. I didn't read this in a book. It's just you observe it. You'd be like, oh, I could see. It should be, because if you cook food now and leave it on the counter, it's more apt to spoil. In the winter, it's colder, so it's less apt to spoil. You have less stomach viruses and stuff like that. Anyhow, so I keep going. So it's just observational wisdom. You observe what's going around you. It's therapeutic to stop and think. So now in verse 21, it says, for 3 things the earth is disquieted, and for 4 which it cannot bear, a servant when he reigneth. So he said, look, this thing here is trouble. A servant, a person that is a lower rung, and be managed by somebody, and now he becomes top. And he's going to connect these 4 things and see how beautiful this is. Because when you observe this, you see what it is. When I was growing up, there's this saying that they have, that a person who I've never seen, now they've come and see. So a person who've never seen, but now they come and see. They don't say it like that. They say never see, come see. That's how they said it. So I used to hear that saying, and what that saying is normally like when a person has old money and new money. See, a new money person is frightened because they never experienced what it is like to have money, so they normally go crazy. A person with new money, they have it, so it's like it's no big deal. Been there, done that. So they normally, that's why new money often lose the money. People win the lottery, people who sign a music contract or a movie contract and they never seen money, they come in from poverty. The first time they sign a contract, I need to go and buy a Lamborghini. But the check didn't even clear. I don't care. You see, that's new money mindset. And what it is now, they're over the top, they're obnoxious. And so they go into decent places and businesses. They act, I have money. They act it. So they know how to behave themselves. And normally they lose it real fast, and they lose it with a lot of despise. People despise them because they're just obnoxious. So he says this is the same thing. He's observing, and we observe it, you realize this is a beautiful observation. A person that is at the slave end or the work bee end, when they get into power, whoa, it's a trouble. Because now they're going to lord it over everybody. Because, they're frightened, they get excited for it. This is why people, when they get around people like presidents, they can become corrupt. It's not they corrupt, they become corrupt. When they get around CEOs and people with money, and they'll do anything for the money. They're like the adulterous woman. She eat, and then she wipe her mouth and keep going. Because she's just grabbing anything she can get. She just will lower herself to any level. And it's the same thing. The servant, when he reigned, disaster. He just become a fool and an idiot. Also, a fool when he is filled with meat. This is why in other poor, I would say go back to the servant when he read it. This is why all the time in other poor countries, the leaders are so easily corruptible. Because they're just like, they get an opportunity and they're going to rob and steal. They're not into leadership because they're hungry. It doesn't mean rich people don't do that, but it just means they're just like, it's like they're out of control. Because they're not trying to reign, they're just trying to lord it over everybody. Back to this now. A fool when he is filled with meat. You know, normally, again, when I was growing up, they call it belly full chat. You know, people chat garbage when their stomach is full. This is the same saying. So this is something we grew up observing. Everybody grew up observing. I'm sure you've grew up, you know, somebody's there, they're hungry, they're quiet. You ever see that? Person hungry, they're quiet, they're not talking, they can't interact. The moment they have their stomach full, pure nonsense flowing out of their mouth. And you know, oh, their stomach is full, and they start to talk nonsense. So a fool when he's filled with meat, oh dear. If you heard nonsense, you haven't heard it until he just feed him and then watch him go. And he says the earth is disquieted by that. Just a simple observation. And we observe, you start to becoming like this. You start to just stop and observe. Notice a servant when he reigned, verse 23. For an odious woman when she's married. Now I've observed this. This is fascinating. This is an obnoxious female, he's saying, odious. You know, you hold your nose when a person come by. But now she's married. Aha. That poor guy, now, you know, all of a sudden there's all these guys flashing in my mind that they're walking with their head down and they're walking as if they're, you ever see the cartoon of people going to like work and they're going everywhere and they're walking with their shoulders slouched forward and they're just depressed and it just, you know, it's this kind of, you know, just depressed existence because she gonna be like snapping at him and cursing him and, oh man, it's horrible. And I've talked to guys like that and they say, man, sometimes I just want to disappear. I just want to kill myself because this woman will not, it's an odious woman and she will not give him a break. She's going to make sure she's stamping him and curse him and scream at him and just treat him like a dog. And she's going to make sure she do it so that everybody can see that, look at me, I'm an odious woman and I have this one by the I can't say it. But anyhow, they have this one and I have this one whipped. I'd be like, wow, this is fascinating. You've seen it. And if you haven't seen it, think about it. Just think about a person very obnoxious and watch out. They make sure you know that, boy, I have this boy whipped. Odious woman when she's married. Ooh, it's something the earth is disquieted because it gets on top of your nerve because you see it, say, why you treat a guy like that? And I've had situations where I had to talk to different friends. I said, why do you beat down in public? That's another thing I had to do in my church. Like, no, this can't happen. It's forbidden. You can't come to my church and be there tearing your husband down. And I make sure I've told men, you look, I can't accept this. You might not want to put a stop to it at your home, but will this not happen in my presence? You will not have your wife here coming down, making a mockery of you, disrespecting you and tearing down, talking all kind of stuff about you and that you're no good and you're this, you're that. You're like, what? And the earth is disquieted. And you have dealt with a lot of situations like this. This is disgusting. I can't talk enough bad about it. This is terrible. But that's what it is because she's like, oh yeah, I shouldn't be married because I'm so disgusting. But now I got one. I'm going to show you all. Come here, husband. And they start whipping the husband. And you'll be like, man, this is terrible to watch blood just spilling. And he's just there taking the beatings. And then he'll run away. And then he'll come back for more beatings and then run away. He will disappear. Sometimes go by his mom, you know, run between her skirt. And he goes back and take a beating again. And I'm like, man. And she's thinking, oh, you need to be a man. I mean, how is going to be a man? You're disgusting. So notice here, and a handmaid that is a heir to her mistress. Other text renders this, other version renders this, a handmaid that supplant her mistress. Oh, this is odious. Because now, oh man, she's the biggest whatever on the block. So she's going to make sure everybody know. And it's a lot of guilt also. Because she supplant her mistress. She going to make sure. And you notice here, all of this, whether or not you agree with it, you know, whether or not a person say, oh, I don't like that. How could the person who wrote Proverbs or they include this type of statement? An odious woman. I'm going to tell you something. It's just observational. You don't have to agree with it. But when you deal with a person who's odious, they're odious. Whether the person is a servant, or whether the person is a fool filled with meat, or whether it's an odious woman that now got married, oh dear, she's going to give it to him. Or whether it's a handmaid that is supplanted her mistress. So she's a maid in the house. And now she the main one in the house. Oh yeah, you can't talk to me. You can't whatever. I'm sleeping with the husband. It is unreal. And it says here the earth is disquieted for. You could disagree, but I've been in so many situations in church and social. It's terrible when someone like this gets in that power. They just lord it over everybody else. You could have it also in a work situation. The person, the boss or the owner of the business starts sleeping with somebody, the female there, and then he promotes her. And then she gonna make sure everybody knows that she's, right, I'm sleeping with the boss. Everybody's gonna have a hard time. It's terrible. And it's just observational. And in life, you gotta observe life. You gotta go through life and like, yeah, I got that. And he did it. And he's saying bam, bam, bam. And somebody could argue against this. You can't. How are you gonna argue against this? And somebody say, oh, the Bible is not true. How? Because I'm a odious woman. That's the only reason. Only way this could be not true is the person is odious and they're like, I don't like that. Because I'm disgusting and I abuse my husband. Now, verse 24. There be 4 things which are little upon the earth, but they are exceeding wise. So 4 things. So what are they? The ant are a people not strong, yet they prepare their meat in the summer. So I've covered this before because it says another place in Proverbs about the ant. It said, go to the ant now and observe. But these two texts talk about the ant preparing in the summer as food for the winter. And they have said, from what I've read more recently or listened to, they said that scientists, these pagans who believe that there's no God, they said that this is one of the reasons the Bible is false, this concept here, because they say ants are not creatures that hibernate or prepare for the winter. Well, you know the ants disappear in the winter. You know that the ant, they disappear as a people, the ants. So these ants, they disappear in the winter, but they say for the most part, they don't hibernate. They're not like bears where they stock up for food and then they survive through the winter. And then they do observation in the Middle East and found literally 3 different type of ants. I'll go with what the Bible says here. 3 different type of ants that literally prepare the food, hibernate. They prepare the food in the winter. Not hibernate, but they prep up for the winter. That's probably the best way for me to say it. So for a while, imagine now, there's young people go to university, and I've experienced this at a university, not this text, but other texts. And the professor come and say, hey, you know this text in the Bible? And they say, look at this ant. These ants don't do that. The Bible is false. It's talking about something that doesn't exist because of their limited observational skills, because they have observed something, say, in Europe or in America. And they say, by our observation and study of the ant in Europe or America, it does not prepare its food for the winter. Hence, the Bible is false. So me now saying my observational wisdom. So by me observing that, I observe over the years that a lot of things that what people call themselves scientists or professors in universities and colleges and high schools, they will say why the Bible is not true. Now, I observe that over and over again, they've been proven false. And that's why you can't listen to people when they say something, because they might say something and it blows your mind. It baffles you. I don't know. Text says that. You look at the Aramaic or the Hebrew, and you'll be like, yeah, according to the Aramaic or Hebrew, I think the translator is right or close to right. I think that's what it's saying. And what you're saying to me, you're saying that that's false, that doesn't happen. The ant does not prepare its food in the summer. Oh, okay. I'm not arguing with that. I said this is what the man observed. The person who wrote the Bible observed this text here, observed that. That's what the ant do. You're saying to me the ant that you observe doesn't do that. I don't know what the ant he was looking at to observe. It's been thousands of years since this has been written. But yet they found ants. They say 3 different type of ant. that they found so far, but only in the Middle East. So he was just observing his local environment. That's what I'm saying. Observational skill is beautiful, but we don't want to take away from the lesson. You prepare for the winter. In the summer, if you're in your 30s, 40s, even I would say to a certain degree, depends how you treat your body. You're in summer right now. This is your highest money making years. This is your most energy, your most hormones. You work for the winter. When your hair start going winter, you start going gray. But there's a lot of people, they're not like ants. The ants that this person was observed, they're not preparing right now for winter. And the winter is coming. Come hell or high water, it's coming. And I know a lot of people who have come for them and they're in a mess. And there's a lot of people right now I know that the winter is coming and they're busy doing all kind of stuff, but they're not busy preparing for the winter. And that's what the Bible said. Go look at the ant. So notice, observation. I'm just observing. And somebody say, I don't like that. I don't like you say there's people that are not preparing for the winter. Or there's people you know that are messed up. I know people are messed up. People I love dearly. But they're messed up now and they're in winter. And why? Because so I have to observe, even if it's offensive. And they might not like that I observe that. But hey, that's life. I have eyes and my eyes focus without me trying. That's why I was saying that earlier. I'm not trying to focus on this thing. It's just like clink. My eyes just like, Lord, look. And I'm looking like, what am I seeing? And it's like my brain says, look, this person never prepared for winter. And somehow I don't like that. Well, that's the Bible. That's why I think people hate the Bible, because they observe them. The coney, it says, are but a feeble folk, yet make their house in the rock. So they go to somewhere that although they're feeble, they have some protection. And you can do the same thing likewise also, can't you? You can make your surrounding become your advantage. Notice the locusts have no king, yet go they forth all of them by bands. I've observed that also. Notice the locusts in Revelation, I think chapter 7 or 9, I can't remember which one all of a sudden. But anyhow, in Revelation it talks about the locusts, and it refers to the Middle East Islamic group, or what we call like the Canaanites. It referred to them as locusts. And I've observed, now somebody could say I'm wrong, but I've observed that when the Muslims or the Islamic Middle Eastern primarily, not the ones from America, because they're not described here, when they fight without a king, but they fight in bands. And they're very resilient. They're very good at doing what they do. But they don't have no kings. Somebody say, how you observe that? By just observing. Think about the Muslims. Or the Middle Eastern primarily, because they could be Muslim from other places, but they don't all function the same way. But think about how they do church. There's no true main imam. There's no pope for the Muslim. They all have each imam rule in his own house, in his own church. He don't answer to anybody higher up. There might be somebody that's seemingly higher up, but this man could say, look, I'm Middle Eastern. My mindset is I do my own thing. Bye. I'm going to go and attack such and such and such. And they just do it. And that's why they can be so ineffective, because this is part of the culture. But also that's why they can be so effective, because you could make a treaty with one over here, and America has proven this text to be right. At least my observation of this text. You could make a observation. You could make a treaty with one over here and the other one come over here and attack you. It's hard to get them to coalesce. But they're just eating. One thing with locusts, they just destroy. They just come in and everything get eaten. So somebody say, well, why didn't you observe this about the ones over here? Ones over here, they're not in the same mindset. They're American, especially Black American from Chicago, Detroit. They're not in the same mindset. They're not locusts. They're not from the Middle Eastern. They're not the Canaanites that Moses was problem with. It's a different. Now, I can make the observation. You can say, I don't like that. I'm probably wrong. But you'd have to show me where I'm wrong. I've not seen it yet. So, this is why truth is so powerful. So, the locusts have no king, yet they go forth all of them by bands, and they're eating everything. They're killing and destroying everything in their midst. They just consume. That's what they do. And if somebody over there hear me say that, they could be offended. So you refer to as a locust. The Bible does, multiple places. They are like locusts. That's how they fight. That's just how I've observed and read the Bible. So I observe. So this is healing, because it readjusts my thinking and the way I see life by stopping and like, the locust. Where have I seen this before? What text? Who I see operate like locusts? Oh, the people in the Middle East, they're like locusts. The spider take hold with his hand and is in king's palaces. Some text renders this the lizard. Both of them does the same thing, and you can see lizards anywhere. You know, you could, if you're in a warm climate, lizards are everywhere. Same thing with spider. So if you have a spider in your house, don't feel bad. They're in king palaces. That's okay. And that's observational wisdom again. There be three things that go well, yea, four that come comely in going. So some use the text rooster, not here, but the next thing is going to say a lion that is the strongest among beasts. So when you see a lion, you just can't argue with it, man. That thing is just looks stately, proud, strong, and can back it up. It just don't look like that. You're thinking, it's just all fake. This is real. It'll chomp away at anything. And even if it's going to lose, he'll still do it and turn it not away for any. A greyhound, as he goat, also. I think it's this one that some texts use a rooster. But you can get the idea. Rooster would be the same observation. Just walking around proud as a peacock, proud as a rooster. And a king against whom there is no rising up or uprising. You can say, yeah, that king is like strong as an ox. And so notice here before I go to the last two verses. To me, when I read this, I just say, this is why I need to learn more. I need to learn to open my eyes. So somebody said, but you could observe something that the society tell you something else. Yeah, I know. All the time. And that's why wisdom is different. The society might tell me. I go to the news and say, hey, this is what's happening. And I'm observing. I'm like, nah, that's not happening. So they say, how can you say that? Because I've observed differently. I've learned to not take everybody's narrative for what it is. I'm observing that this is what's going on. And somebody said, well, how you know if you're wrong or right? Just give it time. Because it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger, or better, or worse. And that's what it is. So you observe. And you be like, yeah, like I've observed. The people who are most rabid and who are most completely eat their standard American diet are the people who have the highest amount of cancers. Now somebody could say you're wrong. Okay. But that's what I've observed. And over the years, what has happened, all the scientific research is proving that, whether it be lunch meat, whether it be too much pork and too much, bacon and all this, it's whatever, diabetes, high blood pressure from all these pizza and bagel and donuts and all that. But it's just observational. But you could observe something and then later on science catch up with it. It don't mean that you were wrong. Or you jumped the gun. It just means you've observed. It don't mean that probably I need to publish it sometime, but that's just how I see life. You observe, you look. Verse 32, if thou hast done foolishly in lifting up thyself, or if thou hast thought evil, lay thine hand upon thy mouth. So hold back. Surely the churning of milk bringeth forth butter, and the wringing of the nose bringeth forth blood. So the force of wrath bringeth forth strife. So basically saying, back off a little bit. Don't push. Don't be stressing stuff. Because if you do, you can get results. So you don't want certain results, don't push certain things. And that's just what it is. It's just, there's something, that's just the way it is. That's how I look at that text. It is the way it is. And somebody might say, oh yeah, but I don't like your conclusion. Yeah, but the conclusion is the way it is. And when you start making those conclusions, that's why I say it's healing. Because as you learn to make these conclusions, you'll adjust your own life, because you realize, oh man, if I do this over here, then I'm going to bleed from my nose. You know what? I'm not going to do this over here because I don't want to bleed from my nose. And somebody say, why you stop doing this? Because I notice when I do this activity over here, I bleed from my nose. And somebody said, did your doctor tell you? I'm like, no, my doctor didn't tell me. I have two sides of my head. My brain tell me from my observation that if I do this, this will happen. But somebody says that being clinically proven? No. Is the professors teaching that in universities? No. Is the scientist teaching that? No. So why are you doing it? Because I tell you, every time I do this, I wring my nose, my blood come. So because of that, I've observed not to do certain things, no matter what they say. I'm going to tell you that's what I've observed. And when you learn to do this, as old David said, you can be wiser than your elders. And somebody say, is it a point of pride? No, it's just a point of I've just learned to use my eyes and my ears and make decisions. And that's simple to me what the Bible is teaching us here. And that's your solution to depression, to weakness, to sickness, to a lot of problems in this life. Use your brain, use your eyes. You don't have to wait until the scientists come out and prove something. Or if they disagree with it, still use your brain and your eye and say, man, I hear what the scientists say. But the Bible is true, God is true, and I'm going to hold to what the Bible says. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you for the love that you continue to bestow in our hearts. I continue for the wisdom that you give us, dear Lord, that we might not live as fools and we might not die as fools. May you bless us, we pray, for Christ's sake. Amen. Well, thanks again for being with me here on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you again live Monday morning, where we should talk about motivation. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.